Hey, Guru Nation, welcome back to the Clinical Trials Guru.com. I am with Darshan Kulkarni. Darshan really needs no introduction. I think by far you are the most frequent guest on the
Am I?
show.
Huh.
There's not even a close second. Maybe Chris Sauber, maybe, but he's not
Wait,
really a
how is
guest.
Chris a guest at this
He's
point?
not really a guest at this point. He's like he does all the webinars. It took like years to convince him to show up on camera, but he does now.
Am I like
So
de facto co-host at this point?
yes, you are, and you have been like since 2010. I think we
Is that really
discovered.
right?
Yeah, we discovered each other on Twitter back in 2010
Wow.
because there was like almost nobody talking about clinical research on it, and there almost still isn't anyone now. There's
Everyone
a
wants
few
to
more.
market.
There's a few more on Twitter now.
Yeah.
So what's up, Darshan? You want to introduce yourself? Like, attorney, pharmacist, jujitsu fighter,
GG.
speculative Bitcoin, and you invest in tulips, I hear. Tulip mania. So who are you, Darshan?
Let's see. Food and drug lawyer. Uh, I focus primarily on the life sciences, but also foods, cosmetics, a little bit of work
Ooh,
around tobacco. Uh,
cosmetics.
yeah, there's some really interesting stuff happening around cosmetics right now.
First time I've heard
Labeling
this.
changes. Yeah.
I will tell my wife.
Food labeling.
So
Fair enough.
unrelated tangent, but this is good for the podcast. I talked
Yeah.
to a doctor in Miami. He's actually from Colombia. Opens a site in Miami for like the last 10 years, more like 20 years. And he's
Uh-huh.
big in the cosmetics. And he says when the market, because clinical trials is, uh, I mean, we're a healthcare industry, but it's really more like oil and gas. Like it's very speculative. Like you'll invest in a therapeutic indication, then you'll go through cycles, right? So
Yeah.
what he does is he'll do a lot of these cosmetic studies
Great.
when the market goes down, and then like he'll pick back up when it goes. So that's how he like survives. And I want to get into that mainly because my wife's very interested in that kind of stuff. She's actually working on a product right now, but I didn't know you do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I do that. I do food labels. I do like that's a whole industry. Uh,
Wow.
can you say organic? How big can your word organic be? Can you say dairy or dairy free? Can you say like the big words that we end up dealing with is there's something called RBST, which is something that's injected into cows to make them produce more milk.
Sounds
Can you
expensive at
say
Whole Foods.
RBST free? Yeah, exactly. So can you say RBSD free?
Huh.
Um, and the hint, hint, nod, nod, the answer is no, you cannot say RBSD free. The FDA specifically said you cannot, but
Hmm.
you'll see people say it. So
Interesting.
it's that kind of stuff. There's a lot of promotional stuff I do. Medical marijuana. I just gave the talk in Pennsylvania. I just got the first set of pharmacists and doctors licensed to dispense and to recommend medical marijuana. So that's kind of interesting. So I give the lectures for that. And I guess by default, I automatically also become certified to do it myself.
Can you send me a free samples?
Specifically prohibited by Pennsylvania law.
Ah.
Cannot
Well, I'm
send.
in California, so it's all right. Just mail it.
I
You're not
believe you guys have
committing
your
any
own rules
crimes.
anyways, right? I'm sure there's someone in Nevada who can help.
Yes, this is true. This is actually a good segue. Not the marijuana part, but the Whole Foods part, right?
Yeah,
So
what's going on?
Amazon bought them. Everybody knows
Yeah,
already. But
yeah.
Amazon is also heavily invested in clinical research, right?
Well, they said they want to get into drugs.
Okay, so what does that mean? They're going to be Pfizer?
No one knows, and that's the big multi-billion-dollar question.
It's scary, right?
So that's the fun part. So if you look at like the Walgreens stock, and you look at I believe the Rite Aid stock as well, but also the Amerisource Virgin stock and the Cardinal stock,
Down.
all those stocks are just collapsing.
Yep.
And I was thinking, well, why doesn't Amazon just go ahead and tell us what they're going to do and then figure out the details later? They've said that they'll let us know by Thanksgiving. And then I was talking to people and they went, why would they? They like the idea of all these stocks just collapsing.
Of course. Bezos is a gangster.
Basically, turns out he's actually from the Philly area. He
He
went to
is?
school in Princeton.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I read his bio, but he grew up in New Mexico. But yeah, I think he did go to Princeton.
The only reason I know that is my attorney was his classmate.
Wow.
So that
That's
was
big
kind of
time.
interesting.
He was voted
Yeah.
most unlikely to succeed, probably, in the yearbook.
Apparently, there were three Jeffs in the classroom. One was Bezos, one was my attorney, and one was someone else.
Okay, crazy. So, like, what is it? Because I wrote an article recently on
Uh-huh.
LinkedIn about Amazon getting into, or what if they were to get into clinical research, right?
Uh-huh.
And because they have patients, they can recruit, right?
Well, how would they identify though?
I don't know. They can send a targeted email to everyone, maybe.
Maybe.
Like, hey, we have a
Uh,
diabetes study. Just send it to all their billions of subscribers, and they'll do better than a Curian at getting patients.
well, think of it this way. Have you heard of the big Target problem that what Target had a few years ago?
No, but they're always getting into some trouble with their selling their customers' data.
Well, so there was this situation where there was this woman who went to Target and bought certain things,
Mm.
and then she went home and she got a personalized list of stuff saying, "Congratulations on your pregnancy. Here are some
Yeah,
coupons for your pregnancy."
I heard
Have
that.
you heard of
Yeah,
this? Yeah.
yes.
And they go, the father got really upset, and I think he called up about it, and they said that apparently people who buy these elements in this order have a high likelihood of being pregnant, so they get targeted into that mailing list.
Hmm.
So um, Amazon could very easily go, anyone who buys these types of products probably has diabetes. They could do it one step shorter, just go anyone who buys Lancets,
Yeah,
and then just do part of a diabetes study because, or you
exactly.
either
Just
know
like that.
someone, yeah.
And I guarantee you, and I know nothing about Acurian or any of these other patient recruiters, but there's no way they can hang with that strategy. Like, how can you compete?
So
You can't.
someone figured out a way of competing. By the way, did you hear today's news?
No, I've been on the grind.
So about 4 to 5 hours ago, Uber announced that they're going to introduce a credit card,
Hmm.
which makes you go, meh, whatever.
Yeah,
When I first heard of it, I was like, who
yeah.
gives a
You,
crap?
you get in more debt. Good.
Yeah. But what they said was that what Amazon can do right now is they can tell you about online purchases. What Uber wants to get into is tell you about the offline purchases. So if they can start tracking not just where you go, but what you buy, imagine the value of that data. So now they might be able to tell you this patient goes to this hospital and then goes to this pharmacy and buys these products.
Mm. So it's kind of like Waze. You know that app that
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't use, but other people do. So it knows your route, and then it tells you like what you might be interested in on your route. Like if you're hungry, here's a restaurant, like you might like it. So it's similar to that, like offline.
Same
Interesting.
concept. That's what they're going for. So that's to your point of who can compete against Amazon. I guess
Mm.
Uber's taking that on.
Eh. Gun to my head, I take Amazon.
Yeah, because Uber has other problems to deal with right now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so there's that going on. So the real question that they were dealing with is Amazon's already announced that by Thanksgiving they're going to get into the pharmacy world. And the question is, what will they do in the pharmacy world?
So send you your script through the mail, or you go pick it up at Whole Foods or something.
So I have another podcast coming through because I do a pharmacy podcast as well,
Mm-hmm.
and I've actually sort of told my answer there, but I guess I'm going to break it to your news first because
Thank you.
you guys have been with me for a while, and they're a great team as well, and I love to support them as well, but I don't think the audiences cross over enough.
Okay.
So I can sort of talk a little bit. So let's put it this way. In the pharmacy, I think that Amazon works off of this idea that they want to be disruptive.
Hmm.
I think that Amazon works off. Oh, by the way, I own Amazon stock, so I want to clear that up.
Oh, me too. But yeah.
So if there's an SEC person looking, I'm not trying to I want to disclose that.
I will short
But-
sell after this interview.
I don't have any plans to sell right now. But anyways, so Amazon's is in the business of being disruptive. Amazon is in the business of trying to quote unquote be a force for good. Amazon's in the business of distribution. Amazon does a really good job connecting a seller to a buyer. Here's what I don't think Amazon wants to get in the business of doing. Last mile. I don't think Amazon does last mile very well, but there's nothing super amazing about this idea that instead of some guy driving his car to your house and delivering medication, there's going to be a drone coming to your house. Okay, they might do that, but there's nothing amazing about that. Here's what I think Amazon will do instead. So the entire drug distribution market is based off of three major players. There's a company called Cardinal, there's a company called AmerisourceBergen, and a company called McKesson. And what they do is that they will take products. They control 90% of the distribution market, the wholesale distributor market. This is news for some people who are not in the pharmacy industry. So they take drugs from the pharmaceutical manufacturers, and they essentially work to get it to the pharmacies. So that's one. Then there's something called a GPO. GPOs are group purchasing organizations. And what they basically do is that they will be groups of pharmacies. And what they'll do is they'll come together and they will say, since we're together, we're going to buy X amount of product. Since we're going to buy X amount of product, I want you, AmerisourceBergen or Pfizer, to give me a good discount for this. And then in the middle, you'll have what's called a PBM. So when you go to Blue Cross Blue Shield, your pharmacy processor isn't Blue Cross Blue Shield. Blue Cross Blue Shield goes to a third-party vendor called a PBM, a pharmacy benefits management system. Optum's an example of that. And basically say, I want you to negotiate my pharmacy deals for me. Now here's the problem. That's three separate layers. There's the distributors, there's the PBMs, and the GPOs, each of whom is getting a cut because they are doing something valuable in that process. But here's the question. If I'm Amazon and I already know how to deal with providers, couldn't I automatically go to Pfizer, go to Merck, go to any of those people and then tell them, I'll buy the product from you, and I'm going to buy X amount of product anyways, so I want you to give me a good discount. I will ship it to the pharmacies automatically. I can always ship it to the patients. That's easy enough. And that's sort of where I think the long-term play will be, because it's not that difficult for Amazon to do. I will buy it from you, sponsor pharmaceutical manufacturer. I will then, since I'm buying in bulk, I can reduce the cost anyway, since I'm buying so much of it, not have to get into the whole PBM space. I can avoid the PBM. I can avoid the GPO as well, and essentially drop the price of drugs automatically because I'm avoiding two separate layers, each of whom needs to get at least 12 to 30%, probably more. So the idea would be, I believe, that Amazon's going to come to the business and disrupt it by basically flattening the entire system. They'll directly connect the manufacturers to the pharmacies. And they would therefore drop drug prices. They would speed up drug delivery. They would they would disrupt the market. And isn't that what we said Amazon's going to do anyways?
That's what they've been doing.
That's what they've been doing.
It's part of their overall strategy, the macro strategy, right?
I don't see them getting into the let me be the next Walgreens. Why?
Do you see them getting into the let me be the next Pfizer?
So, short term, no, that doesn't make any sense for them. They're not in the invention business. That's not what they do. There is some information out there suggesting that they're getting into the fashion business and their private labeling, but that really takes them more into the generics market space. So if I was worried, I'd be more worried about being Teva than I would about being Pfizer.
Interesting. So generics. If they do.
Think about what they've done, right? If they do, why would they care about... what they could do because of who they are is say, I need 30 million pills, and I need them tomorrow, but I don't want to take the risk that some schmuck's going to mess up that supply chain, so I'm going to spread it across 4 different manufacturers. And since I'm going to spread it across 4 different manufacturers, they don't need to know that there are 4 different manufacturers, but I'm Amazon, I can control that. I know how to get it from one place to the other.
Yeah.
And I'll just put the Amazon label on them.
Interesting.
So long term, I see them getting into that. Long term, I also see them saying, why do I need a pharmacy at all?
Mm-hmm. Why don't I go direct to consumer?
Right. Well, there are some things
But
that
there's
prevent.
laws, right?
Well, so the law says, so there are two different laws. So I considered, well, why couldn't they do the pharmacy market? So one way they could do the pharmacy market is they would basically become a pharmacy that is registered across the different states. It has to be registered in every single state.
Whole Foods Pharmacy.
Right, Whole Foods Pharmacy. But then they're sort of getting into being just another pharmacy. There's nothing disruptive about it. Another angle they could have taken the same thing is by saying, why don't I just enable pharmacies to sell? So I've got a patient in Kansas City. Well, I'm in Philadelphia, so let's pick Philadelphia. I've got a patient in Pittsburgh. I'm in Philadelphia. I'm a pharmacy in Philadelphia. I see an order come through from Amazon. I fill it and ship it via Amazon to the patient. Yeah, theoretically that could work. But now your problem is there are several laws around transparency. There are several laws around tracking drugs. And how does Amazon know whether I, as a pharmacist, obeyed all those laws? Is that a headache for Amazon even wants to get into? Why bother?
Right.
So I don't see them trying to get into the pharmacy market. It just seems too headache-filled.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's not like Amazon Web Services where they can, rent server space and there's
Exactly.
way less regulations there, if any. I mean, I'm sure there is now.
Sure. I mean, there are privacy issues and stuff like that, but they'll all just come back to bite them anyways.
Interesting. Yeah, because I'll pull up the article, but you mentioned something about 23andMe.
Yeah.
So 23andMe wants to turn your genetic data into a drug discovery gold mine.
So, and I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes, but basically what it comes down to is this other article where everyone has been going to 23andMe and sort of thinking of them as this, oh, they'll give me my data and I'll feel all happy because I'll know what my ancestry told me. Well, that's all well and good, and I'm sure you got the data you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But a really interesting question is, what are they going to do with this genetic treasure trove that they have? And what they've decided is they're going to take that information and they're going to convert it and they're going to data mine it. And then they're going to sell that data to pharmaceutical companies.
So if they do that, they should just give it out for free.
Well, should they though? Why give away for free something that's worth billions?
No, give away their product for free to the consumer just to get as many people on. As many people's data on, and then all in the fine print it says, hey, we're going to sell your stuff everywhere.
Well, why give it for free if someone's willing to pay for it?
Exactly, yeah. But if they really want,
right.
traction, right?
Yeah, maybe. But then they have to handle all of that for no good return.
Mm-hmm.
And conceptually that's possible. It's not a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
But then they'd have to bear the cost of all of that.
They need a proof of concept first, that someone's willing to pay for this data, that someone's comfortable to pay for it.
Right, exactly right.
And that they can make money on their investment.
Exactly right. So that's going to be the other thing. So the question is, how do you, and I struggle with this because there needs to be a better patient's bill of rights. What rights do patients have? I think about myself. When I buy an Apple Watch, am I signing on, and I pay, say, $600 for it? Am I saying $600 is the price for me to own the watch? Or am I saying $600 is the discounted price? It could have been $1,000, but I won't pay the extra $400 because Apple will get my data. That's what Apple gets instead.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how it's ever framed. It's framed as, this is your watch free and clear. At least that's how I've always understood it as a purchaser.
Right.
It's your watch free and clear, and I just happen to get some data that goes with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's, as we get into this age of data mining, it's a naive way of looking at it. And what 23andMe is doing is just the next step of it. Every major tech company is getting into healthcare. Steve.
Bless you.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Chilly. It's chilly over there in Philadelphia, huh?
It's a little chilly over here.
I was gonna throw another sports reference, but then I remembered. I
I
remembered.
do not know sports. I know nothing about
You
sports.
guys got a good team this year, football.
That's what I hear. I hear the
Hmm.
Eagles are doing well, but
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know what that means.
that's right.
I have decided never to play a sports game with Dan. Uh,
Fantasy. We're doing. We're thinking of doing a fantasy football league next year for like some Guru Nation people.
oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, that'd be
I,
cool.
I hear there's really no talent required, right? Is
For
it you just
fantasy
pick?
football, it's like stock picking.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, you got to find the undervalued assets, and
Oh,
yeah, it's like
I
trading
heard.
stocks.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
That
and
would.
then the performance is what they do on the field, but that's it's like an earnings report.
Interesting. No, no, I thought that at least the way some of the people here do fantasy football is you just pick a spot on the board and then just hope it gets lucky.
Oh
So,
no no no! Yeah, this is like managing a team, and you have head-to-head matchups. I guess the only difference between this and stock picking is you're playing against someone every week, a new opponent.
what I like about stock picking is no one's betting against you.
Or
Everyone
are
gets
they
to-
not? This is a very interesting question there, Sean. Which we might get into in our other podcast, but for those who are interested, this is what I'm all about lately. Have you heard of this dude, James?
I've never heard of James Altucher.
Oh, check him out, man. He's cool. Smart dude.
I'm gonna have to connect
East
you with.
Coast guy like yourself.
I'm gonna connect you to this person I recommend.
Yes.
Super smart. She'll be a great, great presenter for you.
Please do. So 23andMe. So they're gonna get your data. They're gonna get your. Right now, you're like when you're using it, you're opting into their terms of service, right?
Yeah, and
So
that includes this piece. The question is how far can they go? And you've got to remember there are laws like GINA, there are laws like COPPA, there are laws like HIPAA that all sort of guard patient privacy,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh,
But
and
if
including
we're
genetic information. Go ahead.
so if we're in the era of data, because we clearly are, and I mean, this guy breaks it down well. He says we started as theists, era of theism, then humanism, and now dataism, right? Like it would only make sense that the tech companies take over the world, and why not drugs? I mean, why not pharmaceuticals, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
And so, I mean, right now you have Amazon, Apple, Google, and all three of those. Well, Amazon's more speculation, but Apple and Google, they have like you can join a clinical trial right now on
yeah.
your phone, and if you don't have the disease, you can be the control group. But if you do, you can track your progress. It's simple stuff, but it's getting there,
Healthcare.
and they have the numbers.
Oh yeah, healthcare definitely has it, and you know that Google owns Verily. Well,
Hmm.
Alphabet owns Verily.
Yeah, yeah,
So every major tech company has a health division. It's usually in the medical devices area, but there's a lot of sort of co-branding and co-working with major pharma as well. So next 5 to 7 years, you're going to see a lot of tech giants being in the healthcare space.
mm.
To the extent that like actually bringing stuff out.
Yeah. We're already seeing a lot of medical devices studies, like way more than ever, and
Yeah.
that's only going to increase, right? But
Right.
how soon until we have because with all the wearables coming out like Fitbit, Apple Watch,
Right.
Google has its own thing. Like if the FDA is gonna accept this data, it has to be standardized and someone has to calibrate. And so they got to do studies on this
Right.
only so this can then be used as the standard in all clinical trials.
And everyone wants that, and they can't do it yet.
Hmm.
They're too far away from it.
And it's expensive.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
That's the problem right now. Everyone talks about wearables being the next amazing thing out there.
Hmm.
But what's the point if the wearable isn't dependable? I can't tell you the number of times I've walked and the thing doesn't count them, and
Yeah.
the number of times I've not walked and it does.
Yeah.
One of my favorite. I don't
I
know
can
if
tell
you
you how many times my heart rate, I'm supposed to be dead with the heart rate I'm getting, and I know it's not that, and then it comes back down to earth.
Right. One of my favorite ones is I also stand on I have a weighing scale that tells me what my body fat percentage is.
Hmm.
Apparently, my body fat percentage changes by at least a good percent within 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, none of those numbers are dependable. So if they aren't dependable, what's the point?
Right. Right.
So big data is here. The question is the data itself in big data dependable?
And the answer would be no right now.
Correct.
And that's going to be expensive because right now the data you're getting is from this coordinator who's sitting right here, or the PI, especially
Yep.
in psychiatry. Like, they're giving their rating assessments, right? Like, you don't need to calibrate that person's brain. They went to school, they paid for that, right?
Right.
Like, the vendor, the sponsor, has to approve them as a rater, so they'll give them a test. But that's all cheaper than making sure that this thing can accurately calculate a whole number of different data points, because you have to do a clinical trial on this first
Yep.
just to see if it works,
Yep.
right? And who's going to do that? It's
So
expensive.
it is, but here's the good news. If you are a Google and you are really interested in getting into it, what is easier? Buying a Fitbit and then saying, I will standardize the Fitbits right off the bat? Or making your own Fitbit like Google's trying to do and like
Mhm.
Apple's doing with their Apple Watch and all of them? Or trying to go and train every single doctor across the country?
Yeah, they'd rather do the first.
Exactly right.
Hmm.
So will it happen? Yes. But is today that day? No.
No. But it's good for the research sites just to bring it back home. Yeah, people are worried, hey, they're not going to need sites anymore. No, they're not going anywhere. In your lifetime, you will die before the industry changes to the point of a research site is not needed. However, virtual trials, they've
Exactly.
already been doing them. But that's like
Right.
0.05% of the clinical trials.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change so dramatically that you won't need sites. But I think what sites do will change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The responsibilities will change, and maybe sites may not become a standalone organization.
Yeah,
They may end up becoming more of a virtual organization themselves,
they might. Yeah.
and they start monitoring people across the state.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
so, speaking of coordinators, we got Monica here. How's it going, Monica? Welcome to the show. What do we
Hey,
got
Monica.
going on here? Let's see what we got. Oh, we've got some good stuff going on, Darshan. This is
oh yeah, what's up?
this is technology. This is the CRA Academy. Here's where I get my plug in, right? The CRA Academy. This free plug. Monica's been working hard on this stuff. You met Darshan?
Hey, Monica.
She can't hear you, but yeah. Anything else?
I think today that was pretty good.
We save a lot of stuff for next time. Central
Yeah.
auditing, central monitoring,
There you go.
and we will talk to Guru Nation later. Thank you very much, Darshan. Let's do something on stocks.
Oh, by the way, we should tell them about the new upcoming newsletter.
Yeah, tell them about the newsletter, Darshan.
So Dan and I are probably going to start sending out a weekly newsletter to the Guru Nation. We're going to start
That's
co-branding. That way, if people have questions and comments, would be just news that's happening right now in the clinical research world that you should know about. So I know Dan already sends out a monthly one,
That's
and we're
right.
gonna start sending out a weekly one as well.
Mhm.
So stay tuned. There's going to be more news coming.
We're just doing what Amazon and Walgreens are doing, partnering together, right? Thank you, Guru Nation. Thank you, Darshan, and we'll talk later. Take care.